Today's the day. I am a little excited. I'm heading out to the garden and I have to harvest my sweet potatoes. We've been getting some really cool nights and they're all covered up in blankets, but we're getting some rougher weather this week. It's going to be rainy and windy and you want to have dry soil when you harvest sweet potatoes as well as not to damage the skin. So I think that's it. I'm going to harvest them today. So I'm really excited to see how they made out. If I wouldn't have had any in my planters, I would say the sweet potatoes in my garden look absolutely gorgeous. But then when I look at the planters that I have outside, the leaves are like twice as big as the ones in the garden. So maybe it's all leaves, maybe I have no sweet potatoes at all, but I'm really excited to see how it went. So I had about 22 sweet potato slips that I ended up planting in the garden from the ones that I started inside. Now I can tell you right away, those did absolutely nothing. They barely grew. I lost most of them. I think maybe out of the 22 slips that I planted outside in the garden, maybe 6 survived. I don't know, but when I look back at what I did, they were absolutely beautiful inside the house. And then when I put them outside in the garden, they just faded really quick. Like I could see them dying in front of my eyes. I was like, oh my gosh, like I tried different things and I just couldn't revive them. And when I look back at what I did, I went to the store, purchased sweet potatoes that I had no idea where they were from, and grew the slips from those potatoes. So maybe it was a variety of potato that really wasn't meant to survive in the kind of climate that we have here in Atlantic Canada. Lots of factors. Maybe it was the gardener. I am not putting anything past that. Maybe I'm the reason as well why that they didn't do well. So anyway, however, the variety that I did purchase from Manitoba that supposedly does well in Atlantic Canada, the Radiance variety, those are the ones that just did, in my opinion, compared to other years, I have my daughter's cat here who's competing with me, compared to the other years, did really well. So I'm really looking forward. I think I might pull the ones in the garden first because they're not as big, and then I'll move over to the planters. One thing about the planters though, the slips that I did grow from inside the house that I put into my planters did really well, but they were in a spot against my deck, away from the elements, and they did as good as the other ones. Anyway, it's hard to say, but anyway, so enough talking and time to get outside in the garden and see the end results. I just took the blankets off the sweet potatoes, and I don't know if you can see, but some of them did get touched by a little bit of frost on the leaves. So I don't want to leave them any longer. I really think it's time to get them out of the ground. Not only am I competing with the wind, but I'm also competing with my husband who's mowing the lawn. But when you harvest sweet potatoes, you want to make sure that you do it really gently. You don't want to ruin the peel, or the skin of the sweet potato is really tender. And if you nick it, it'll reduce its shelf life by quite a bit. You just got to be sure. I think a pitchfork would work really well. Can't seem to find my father's, and just work my way through the garden pulling them. I'm not expecting to get 10 potatoes per plant. Ooh, I think they're going to be nice. Since these sweet potatoes look like they were touched a little bit by frost, I'm going to make sure that I mark these to make sure that we eat these first, I guess. Look at that one. It's almost like, it's like one whole potato. It's kind of curled onto each other. Look how beautiful, how big it is. That's great. I'm excited. Looks like there's another nice one here. Oh, I'm really happy with this. I've never gotten sweet potatoes like this size. Like in my hand, it's a beautiful size sweet potato. I'm extremely happy. I think there's something else here. Now, sweet potatoes, once you take them out of the dirt, out of the ground, once you harvest them, the work's not done. So you need to, if you would eat them like this, they'd be really starchy. They wouldn't be sweet. They wouldn't taste nice, I guess. So you need to cure sweet potatoes. And that helps toughen the skin and makes their shelf life a lot longer. So to cure your sweet potatoes, you need to put them in a small space, in a single layer. And it has to be around 80 degrees, a consistent 80 degrees. If you can get that temperature consistent, usually 7 to 10 days is enough. I usually put them in a small bathroom that I have downstairs with a heater, and I'll leave them there for a couple weeks. I don't want to break the sweet potato. It's so deep. Maybe for some it's not impressive, but for me here, like, these are 3 sweet potatoes that are at least twice the size of anything I've ever gotten before. Looks like a groundhog went through here. All right, now I'm excited. Now I'm gonna make my way through the rest of the sweet potatoes, but I think I'm gonna have to go get my dad and find his pitchfork. This is the equivalent of about 12 sweet potato plants. So I have another 3 from this variety over in my planters that I am really looking forward to now to see how those look, because these look absolutely great in my opinion anyway. I've gotten some really nice size ones if you compare, like, you know, the size of my hand. They had about maybe 110 growing days. So now on to my planters. I've had these guys tucked in these blankets for the last couple nights because of all the cool nights that we've had. They're a little soft too. They're in need of some watering, so I think it's time to get them out of these baskets and see how well they've done. These 3 are the sweet potato slips that I had started inside my home. And as you can see, these ones did really well compared to the ones in the garden that did absolutely nothing. So I'm curious to see how these have done. And these 3, if you can hear me over the lawnmower, are the same variety that I had in the garden that did fairly well. Plus, right here beside my kale, I have another one. They're not huge, but they're absolutely beautiful. And I mean, I can use these. And this is the variety that didn't do well in the garden at all. So I'm really pleased. Like, I think that's great. You just have to be patient when doing your sweet potatoes because you really don't want to damage them. Wow, there's some really impressive sized sweet potatoes on here. They're kind of all a little tangled up together here though. There's 2 of them tangled. Look at the size of that one, like compared to my hand, like it just goes all around. And then you have this one. Now these next 3 are from the Radiance variety. So I'm really curious to see how these did. So here's the surprising thing, is that I got, as you can see, a lot more than in the garden. Let me just grab one from the garden so we can compare. There were a lot more, but these are the ones that were from the garden, and these are the ones that were in the planters. So they did well, I'd say. Like, maybe if I would have given them more growing time, they would have been absolutely incredible because there's a whole bunch of them. But they didn't come out as big as in the garden. And I'm really surprised. Wow. Look at that. That one's beautiful. Well, isn't that strange? So for this one, I got very few, but I got one absolutely beautiful one. And now one left. I know there's more down in there, just to get to them without breaking them. So these are the planters. These are the Radiance variety in the planters, just to compare sizes. And these are like the biggest ones I got. And this is the equivalent of 4 planters. These are the ones that I got in the garden. So most of the ones that I got from the garden are huge and are absolutely beautiful. Now this, what I got from the garden, is the equivalent of 12 plants. And these over here are for the slips that I started inside the house. The Radiance variety, I think the Radiance did better overall. And the garden. So I guess the garden is the winner. So overall, it's been a really interesting experience, the sweet potatoes. Like, it was not what I was expecting at all. I was really expecting that my planters were gonna have huge potatoes because the leaves were just so big. But I will be planting more in the planters next year. Not the ones that I started in the house this year for sure, but I will be saving some of these after I cure them. So like I said, all of this needs to be cured now. So I'm going to put this in a room at 80 degrees for 7 to 10 days. And after that, you need to store them in a cool, dark place. So I'll put them in a bin, put something over top of them, and put them in my basement. It's as good as it gets. I don't have a cold room, but I've done this in the past, and they've lasted well into March and April, when I will need to start making my sweet potato slips again. I'm definitely going to be saving the ones, the Radiance variety, that to make my slips for next year. I also have a whole series as well. I show you how I started the slips inside the house, how I planted them in the garden, and now the harvest. So be sure to check those videos out. If you like my channel, don't be shy. Hit that subscribe button and the notification bell, and that way you'll be notified when I have new content out. And be sure to check back again soon.